Welcome back to Empirical Animal Podcast Experiment. My name is Piotr and today's guest is Natalia González Acosta, a photographic artist, a Mexican living in UK, and someone who, similarly to me, juggles many hats. Natalia is developing now her second project focused on women's narratives and opening dialogue around the gender design of city spaces. We discuss how Natalia merges her many identities, like being an artist while working in the arts, or being Mexican while living in Britain. And we also talk about what it takes to keep showing up while looking after yourself, about the long game and how running can help you stay on track with it. Great to have you here, Natalia. I'm glad that we get to speak about your work this time, because so far we've been working with many artists on various documentary projects. We never really got to go deep about your artistic practice, right? Because you're a photographer yourself, other than being part of the PhotoWorks team, where I've been for several years making these short documentaries, and that's been definitely for me the most rewarding experience. But maybe let's start with your introduction. So, in terms of the photography, how do you see yourself? How do you present your approach?
Yeah, firstly, thank you so much for having me here today. It's really nice to be on the other side of the camera and have a conversation together. So I consider myself an artist, a photographic artist, and I am very interested in spaces and the way they influence us and influence our experiences, in particular public spaces. In my work, I try to explore our relationship to spaces.
And this is really interesting because my background is architecture and urban design, so I went through a lot of that. And here I think the interesting point is that you're basically talking about empty space, right? Because there's the built space, the buildings, concrete, stones, and then there's the empty space. So it's about the relationship between the two, plus the actors, people in that environment.
Yeah, well, in particular, interested in cities, and during my master's degree, I was reading a lot about urbanism and urban design, and I learned how cities are gendered and how these are designed and built with like a man in mind, and they essentially cater to men's needs. And I'm really interested in understanding how, or essentially with my work, portraying how our experiences as women are affected and limited by this by this design in cities and this lack of accessibility. I've been focusing on women's narratives for the last 3 years, I would say, with 2 bodies of work.
That's brilliant. And before we get in detail into that, is there an example of how the fact, as you said, that cities are kind of designed with a man in mind in the first place, how does it actually present itself to kind of give clarity to the listeners?
Yeah, I think it mainly is not really catering to women's needs. There's a lack of support in terms of, for example, the sidewalks, the pavements. They're usually quite narrow, and they're in many parts of London. They're rarely, straight and wide enough for a pram, for example. Also, sometimes there's not enough public transport, and essentially the walk between, a bus stop or a tube station to someone's home could be relatively quite long. And often in these journeys, there's not enough public lighting, along with this is not, I guess, of the city and urban design, but there's often a lack of policing in certain areas of the city. So all of these things combined really do limit women's experiences of like how they get to one point to another in the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, safety was immediately the first one I thought about, because obviously this is quite critical, right? Not feeling like you can allow yourself to actually commit to certain parts at certain parts of the day. So yeah, this is definitely a big block. And I remember that, you know, at university we were studying the perceived safety. That it's one thing is the, you know, actual presence of threats, but another is, you know, essentially environment which is posing dangers, as if you know, for instance, you feel like you're walking along the street feels like being in a blocked corridor, right? So like something should happen, you don't have anywhere to kind of escape, hide, right? Which shouldn't be happening in the first place. But obviously the design is further lack of recognizing that this is a problem is obviously worsening the experience.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Okay, and so I mean, let's go around. Let's go in details about the current project you're working on.
Yeah, so the current project I'm working on, I still don't have a final title, but it's a continuation from my previous body of work called Women and the City, in which I documented different areas of London, different boroughs, around Zone 2. If you look at London's different zones in terms of the underground stations. So there's around 12 boroughs in that area. But I focused on mainly where I lived, which at the time was, well, it was a combination of Southwark and also Tower Hamlets. These are both very big boroughs. So I was in different areas of the city, and I was walking a lot. I was walking, and for me that project started as to, like, from my experience walking and understanding just how enjoyable sometimes walking was for me. And other times I was really aware of people behind me, or I was feeling very aware of my experience being watched in public. And I started to wonder, how is it for other women? You know, how is it for them walking around the city, especially when they're alone? So I started to gather images that were void of people. So they're very much focusing on the urban landscape, and I was trying to get a variety of how I was trying to capture a variety of how London is, because it's a very diverse city, not only in its with the people, that is, you know, it's very multicultural, but also visually, I think it changes a lot from borough to borough. So I was trying to capture that with the images, and then I was also doing some portraits. And in these portraits, these are of some of them women that I know. Other times there were people that I met. Mostly it's women that I know. And they also shared some of their experiences with me. So I've got little snippets of how it is for them really walking. And then so that was Women in the City, and I felt like it unlocked something in me. That project took about 2 years. I was working on it very slowly as I work full time, and I feel like I had I needed to take a bit of a creative rest and reset after my master's, as it was very demanding. But now I've been working since the summer solstice, which was the 21st of June, on this new project that is essentially expanding on one branch specifically from Women and the City. A lot of women mentioned how different it feels walking alone at night or when it's dark. And so with this project, I'm capturing the transition from like a warm and very light and bright summer to a dark and wet winter. So I'm photographing within a 400-meter radius. In Myland, it's an area that is very multicultural. It has a combination of like...
I used to live there.
Yeah, so you know it really well. It's got like these big roads, very busy high streets, but then it also has some very quiet neighborhoods. It has the park. It has a cemetery as well, very nearby.
It has the canal, right?
Yes, the canal as well.
It's quite unique. But how is that you decided on this area? And is there like a specific center point that you kind of measure the radius from?
Yeah, the tube station. Yeah, so
makes sense.
I decided that area of London because I didn't want it to be a touristy area. I wanted it to be multicultural, and I also wanted it to be near me. I live in Aldgate, so it's very easy for me to get there, and it's an area that I love, that I enjoy a lot in general. Yeah, so I've been photographing since June on a weekly basis, essentially the space. And I'm also creating environmental portraits with people that I encounter, some women that I photograph. And sometimes I've been following up with some questions if they seem keen on the project and they want to take part. So these are conversations that I carry with them. And yeah, I'm photographing on film this time. I think film in general is my preferred way of approaching photography. I enjoy it a lot. And yeah, I was, for example, photographing yesterday and it was very cold. And the intention with this project is to photograph at 4 p.m. at the same time every week to really capture that gradual change of the seasons and
always
the darkness.
Same days, sorry?
Always at 4 p.m, yeah.
But any day of the week, or do you have...
Different days of the week. I try to change it up a bit. So yeah, you're really starting to see... You know, how, in June it was super bright. It was bright until 10, And now at 3:40, more or less, it's getting quite dark. All the lights are on in the streets. Yeah, with this project, I'm trying to, by capturing this transition from summer to winter, I'm hoping to highlight all the challenges that women encounter in their journeys in public.
Let's talk about how you get into the interactions with people. How are you building the relationships? Are they complete strangers? Are you asking them to take picture right on the spot, or is there some kind of build-up?
Yeah, and for this project, I am photographing strangers. These are people that I don't know. They're all women, and I try to approach them. If I see that they're not in a rush, sometimes if women are like, really trying to get somewhere, and especially now when it's darker, I think women are usually outside when they're just on their way somewhere. It's not as much as just for leisure, women are not just loitering or just outside because they want to be outside. Usually, at this time of year, I notice that I see less women. But in general, if I see someone that isn't in a particular rush or, I don't know, is walking their dog, I approach them and I explain who I am, that I'm making a project. Many of them think that I'm a student, which, sometimes it's a bit of an easier way in. But I correct them straight away. I'm like, no, I'm not a student. I'm an artist and I'm doing this. And they usually seem quite keen to take part if they have the time. If not, they're like, you know what, I just can't. And they keep walking. And that's fine. I feel like I've gotten really used to rejections when I'm asking for portraits. Because I understand that it's a big ask. It's almost like I'm taking something from them. I always send their image when I get it back from the lab. I always ask for the details, and I try to have a conversation with them to sort of make them relax and so it doesn't feel as rushed. And I also let them know that I will ask for their consent if it were to be included in the project. So I have all of their contact details, and that's something that's important to me, consent. And I feel like informed consent is some say that it's almost like impossible to fully achieve because you don't know how an image will be disseminated fully, or who would see it, or in what context. But I try to control it as much as possible, and I try to make them aware of what I will be using the image for, if it gets to that point.
I mean, this obviously a challenging part of the work, right? Because I'm assuming that majority of the women you photographed, they're not really involved with the art world, and some may be quite surprised on the request. But has that ever happened to you, to be stopped by someone asking to take a picture of you?
Oh, that's a funny question. No, actually, never.
To me, it happens once in Isle of Dogs, and the photographer explained that it's a project about local people. But my immediate first question was, where is it going to be used?
Yeah.
Without second thinking. That in many ways, the credentials were not so important, but what is actually going to happen with that picture. So I'm assuming that this is the common first reaction.
Yeah, and I think especially now with how everything gets shared on social media or online somehow, people are really aware of, oh, I'm going to be somewhere, and I understand how people feel worried about that. I think I would feel the same way.
And do you think that, I mean, you did mention just a moment ago, you get used to the rejection, right? That's not an issue anymore. It's just a part of the work itself. But do you feel like interacting with people in the streets this way is giving you something beyond, obviously, developing the project that you care about, where you're trying to communicate something back to broader audience? But what are your observations like? What is just working on it giving you personally?
Yeah, I think for me, the more I get to talk about a project or something that I'm working on, the more I appreciate it, because I feel like I don't have enough opportunities to discuss a topic or the concept of a project with someone that I don't know. And especially, I don't know where they work, I don't know their biases, I don't know how they would find it interesting or not. So simply having a quick line about what it is, what the image is for, or what the project is about, I think it has really helped me to get better at my communication. I think since I moved to the UK, communicating and getting myself across has been something that I've struggled with in the past, and it's with photography something that it's been helping me a lot, and I think that's even partly one of the reasons why I make some of the work that I do.
And rolling back to the previous project, because that was exhibited, right? It did conclude with an exhibition. So how was first of all, was that the first time after graduating to be taking part in to have a show, or and in general, like what did it feel like, right? Being able to have people confront your work, as a kind of living, breathing entity.
Yeah, it was very exciting to have the work shown in an exhibition. So I have had an exhibition before. That was my first exhibition after graduating. This was very small, and it was with a previous body of work called New Citizens. And I had the opportunity to show 2 images of that body of work here in London. But it was very, very short. It was something very, very quick. And then, with this project with Women in the City, I had the opportunity to be a part of Reflector, and that was a group by Grain Projects. I got into this group of artists, and we had an amazing time of mentorship and discussions and crits and opportunities to talk about our work. And I feel like that was very, very useful for me to be able to really finalize this project and bring it together. And then we had the chance to exhibit the work. It was a show group, and we had all this course in Walsall, which is very close to Birmingham. New Art Gallery in Walsall. It's an amazing, beautiful gallery space, and it's massive, really big, very important for the region, I think. So it was really exciting to have my work there, especially with that group of people. These are artists that I admire a lot, and it was very exciting. And yeah, it was. I didn't have the chance to visit it often because it was always a bit difficult for me with the trains to get there. But I did get to see the show once, and always seeing people looking at your work is a bit daunting. So you don't know how they're interpreting it, and you're just hoping that you did everything right for the message to come across as well as possible.
But is your experience that there's enough of opportunities for young emerging artists, or is it very competitive?
Yeah, I think in general, any opportunities in the art and in photography especially, it's extremely competitive. I think there are so many opportunities, you could say, but I feel like there are so many that are very specific for artists that are at a specific point in their career, or if you have work about a specific topic. Sometimes there's a bit of a trend with topics that are being focused on with galleries and organizations. So if your project doesn't fit with those topics, perhaps you won't have the time to show it. You won't have the chance to show it anytime soon. So sometimes it's a bit of luck, really, that all stars align and you're able to get it. But yeah, I think it's quite competitive as a field, and then also artists in general. I feel like we all want an opportunity to share our work. We all want an opportunity to explain why we do the work that we do, and it feels anytime you get any sort of positivity from an organization or an application, even if you are able to get some feedback, is really precious, because you're able to understand, okay, how can I approach this next time? But yeah, I think with the artists in Reflector, it was a very lovely group. We were quite a few, so I would say that not every week, because we would meet weekly. Not every week everyone would be there, but there are specific artists that I can see that they're doing really well, and I'm really happy for them. It's exciting to see their shows. I was able to go see Timon Benson, one of his exhibition here in London with Weber Gallery, and he's an amazing person, an amazing artist. He's really inspiring, I think. And he's really lovely, so I'm just really happy for him.
What I also read here between the lines is that ultimately it's all relational, right? That it's in terms of the things that influence your work, but also like you have the clarity that you're not doing it for the sake of doing and putting it in the drawer, right? Like it is the work you're doing intended to share with others, and that's the point where actually you can reflect on it and take notes on the next step, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes difficult to understand what's the type of audience that should be looking at your work. Because, for example, I'm not sure if the people that have seen my work are the ones that should be seeing it. I would like more men to look at some of the images that I make. I would like them to understand a bit more how it is for some women, being outside on their own, walking from A to B in the city at 5 p.m. in December, when it's already pitch black. So sometimes the challenge is in how can I make sure that I find the right person to look at it? Who is the right person?
Mm-hmm. And how to get them to look, right? To actually pay attention, probably as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. And would you like to say something about anything really that's influencing your work? Because you did say that it's for these projects, the foundation is your personal experience, but going broader, like in terms of your approach to photography, like where does it come from? And we can roll back as far as how it all started, right? Your engagement with photography, things you were exploring during your studies, and I think it's also a good place to highlight that you're Mexican, living in UK for many years, and how the experiences you brought from your home country, got confronted with the reality here in Britain, and what has changed.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think my experience with photography and really where it comes from is a lot of it is my experience as a migrant in the UK. As you mentioned, I moved to the UK in 2016, so almost 10 years ago now. And initially, I came to Cambridge, a small town north of London, and I thought it was beautiful. This little bubble, I thought it was perfect for me as a student. I was there for 4 years, and then I came to London, even though I thought that I would never live in London because I didn't like it at that point. But really, it made sense. It was far from Cambridge, and initially I came here to do my master's at Goldsmiths, and that's the first time that I got really introduced to a big city. Even if I would come to visit from Cambridge every, couple of weeks, every month or so, it's not the same as living here. And I come from an area in Mexico I grew up in a very rural area in between two cities. So I'm from Jalapa in Veracruz, but I grew up in between Jalapa and Coatepec, and it's just the rainforest. It's a very mountainous area, very humid. There's a lot of rain, and I grew up outside pretty much my whole life with my cousins. I was always out there in nature, and there's a river nearby, and I would just go up and down the river with the dogs. And I grew up with a very outdoorsy point of view to life. And coming here to the UK, it was hard for me to be so confined the whole time, being inside. And especially in London, I find that hard to even, find places like apartments with even a little bit of outdoor space, a terrace or a balcony. So I haven't had any of that. And I think that's where my interest in urbanism comes from, just because it still feels foreign to me in some ways. So I think initially when I came to the UK, I was interested in my experience as a migrant, and I was looking a lot at topics of belonging and migration and citizenship and these structures of power of the government, and how it's so difficult to get visas, and now it's even harder with all the changes that are being brought in. And I was just so consumed by that, and I feel like at that point my experience of making work really came from this need of connection and this need of wanting to be understood. I was trying to find people that were feeling similarly to me, that were also migrants. So it is a project that I did called New Citizens, where I was like photographing migrants, mostly from Europe, but there was a Colombian person that I also worked with. And I went to their homes. I was there when they graduated. Well, it's not graduated, but it's like their... it's at the city hall where they get their citizenship and they have this ceremony. So it's not a graduation, it's just a ceremony. But everyone was very, dressed up, and I was even able... they let me attend one of these ceremonies, and that was very interesting. So for me, it was really coming from these topics of myself wanting to belong, wanting to connect to the local culture, and finding people that feel similarly to me. And I think as I've grown older and I've moved to a bigger city, the topics have been more about women's experiences and women's narratives, and just how there's a lot of limitations for us that many men are not aware of. And that's what I'm trying to highlight with my work now.
Makes perfect sense. Were there any artists in your family or among your peers back in Mexico? And did you actually have some artistic education back then, or has those started here?
I did have an uncle. He passed away when I was a teenager, but he was a photographer. His name is Juan Manuel González Parra, and he was a brilliant photographer. I have discovered a bit more about his work as an adult, and I was always really inspired by his images. I think when I first got curious about photography, he took me to get a camera, and he was trying to explain to me, but things were already kind of digital, and he was very used to film and a manual camera, so he was a bit confused himself. And
so what age was that? When did you get your first camera?
I was 14, yeah, and it was a birthday present, I believe, or a Christmas present.
So it's a long-standing passion, right?
Yeah.
And you've been sustaining it because for me, I was kind of switching. My kind of artistic practice has been coming in stages, and everything was connected. And I can, looking back, see that it was a natural progression, but there wasn't that much of continuity with a single medium or discipline. So I think that's really great. So, and obviously I also read from that's where enthusiasm for film cameras, even though most photographers prefer film.
Yeah, my uncle had a darkroom in his home, and I thought that was very cool. Firstly, I just, the idea of him being in a darkroom, and I didn't understand anything at that point. And I tried to understand a bit more about film photography and how things work, ISO and all these things, and I just had no clue. And I felt that it was actually quite hard to get into it. I mean, I was a teenager and I was just trying to read blogs and look at YouTube videos, trying to inform me of how things work. I feel like there are a lot of more resources now. But yeah, I think his work is really inspired me. It's he focused a lot on Afro-Mexican communities, and just Afro cultures and communities, not only in Mexico but also in Colombia and some parts of the Caribbean. And his images are so beautiful, and I think the way he was able to portray people in such it was very beautiful, but it was also full of like mutual understanding. They felt at such ease with him. Yeah, when I said that I've been discovering his work a bit more as an adult, I have a friend in Mexico. Her name is Coral Carballo. She's also an artist, and she focuses a lot on Afro communities as well in Veracruz, in my state. And she's told me that, she's been photographing people. She goes into certain areas of the state, and she's found images of my uncle in their family album. And the way they talk about him, apparently, it's just been really inspiring for her. And that is just amazing, especially as I've always had a very deep need to approach things in an ethical way, understanding that my uncle was doing that earlier on, even when things weren't really, when the conversations weren't taking place at that point. For me, that's very, very inspiring and very motivating to keep having this approach.
And the ethical being essentially seeing the person as subject of your photographies and building a relationship rather than just as I heard, is stealing the soul, right?
Yeah.
By just snapping the picture. So I mean this is obviously interesting because I for instance didn't have in my family any artists, so it was very confusing, and I think it's extremely beneficial if you have some sort of guidance. But after that, have you had mentors or like specific, not necessarily artists, but people who are kind of guiding you, or otherwise just artists you've been specific artists that you were looking up to?
Before I joined Photoworks, and when I was finishing my master's, I was really interested in Mónica Alcázar Duarte, and she's a Mexican artist. She actually worked with Photoworks. She took part in the Ampersand residency at Whitwell Lodge. So she was telling me about her experience, and she is someone that I've looked up to since that moment. I think meeting a fellow Mexican in London is very reassuring, and just seeing that others can make it happen is encouraging.
That's what I saw. I thought that it's always important seeing that something is possible, right?
Exactly, and especially because ever since I was doing my master's, I was really aware of how Latin Americans is not an ethnic group that is officially recognized in the UK. Any forms that you fill out as part of the government or any organization, there's no box for Latin Americans. And I do, now that I've sort of, I've been aware of these facts for a few years now, and I do see a lack of opportunities for Latin Americans, and especially Latin American artists. Even though there's no special box for Latin Americans so far, and there's no official recognition yet, it's something that is being worked on.
You said that it's 9 years that you live in the UK. For me, it's 7 years and a half right now, and I think that it is a significant point where you basically see how much the period has affected you, and I started feeling slightly disconnected from my past. Initially, I think I was actually actively seeking to create something new lifestyle, and perhaps it was helping, perhaps not. But at this point, I'm actually quite interested in exploring, my roots, the Polish roots, Slavic roots, story of my family. And that's because basically I started seeing that these things are affecting me, affecting how I perceive the reality, how I perceive myself. How's it for you, Natalia? Like I heard you speaking of yourself as being proudly Mexican. So how do you view your cultural background? I guess that's how I should call it, your roots.
It's interesting to hear that you're discovering more about your history and family history, and also in general with Poland. And I think I'm in a similar stage as you, where I find myself to be drawn to history a lot more now. I think earlier when I was a teenager, I found it a bit boring, I must admit. but it's fascinating. You know, there's so much that's happened that's made Mexico the country that it is today, and I want to understand it better. I have a general idea of how things took place, of course, but it's something that I would like to focus on more. And here in the UK, I think my identity, I feel more Mexican, I think now, than before, perhaps when I was a student. I feel like now I'm more aware and proud of my country. I grew up with this feeling or this notion and idea that, you know, Europe was the first world, and it was what we should strive for. And when I had the opportunity to study here, I felt so proud and so excited. But I feel like I've always, you know, I try to visit my family once or twice a year, if possible twice, but sometimes it's difficult with a full-time job. There's been a change of discourse, interestingly, I think, at least in my mind. You know, this idea of striving for the first world and always looking up to Europe and the US. I grew up with this mindset, and I feel like there's been a reverse on that now. I feel like I now am much more aware of Mexico's history, and I appreciate it so much more than when I was a teenager. And so I'm really proud to be Mexican, and I'm really proud to, you know, to bring my Mexican heritage with me to everything that I do. I think for me that gives me a point of view that's perhaps a little bit more open, and sometimes I can perhaps like allow a bit more patience when I'm working with people. I don't know, there's something with in terms of timing that is particularly different between the UK and Mexico, and I feel that comes across when I'm making work with my photography. But yeah, I feel like I'm really like excited to learn more about Mexico's history in general, and I'm really proud of other Mexicans that are here in London making amazing things that are very connected to our heritage and Mexico's roots. You know, I love food. Mexican is my favorite food. Of course, I'm biased, but you have to eat it in Mexico. I'm sorry, but here in the UK, it's not good.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, but there are a few places that are, you know, they're really going for it, and it's really exciting to just see how many more Mexicans I'm hearing about in the UK, in London, doing amazing projects. And I feel like making noise about us being here is important also, so that we can eventually get that official recognition of the community.
Yeah, and you know, I perfectly agree that you know, for me growing up in Poland, equally, I mean, it's hard to say if that was the systematic narrative that you know, our culture is inferior. You know, there's a past of you know, wars, oppression. You know, the history was clearly pointing to the direction that, you know, we're the victims, we were the weaker in the past, and that the West is you know, is leading the direction. And you know, gradually seeing that it's been the resilience and the continuous like rebuilding of the country, which is really inspiring for me, and the resourcefulness. So now, moving from here, what I would like to touch on is another case of duality, right? So being an artist, but also having a job in the arts field, and how if they kind of influence one another. Do you feel that there's you know, competition for time? Do you feel that it's difficult to find time and space to develop your practice, or perhaps this actually helps in a way spreading it over time and obviously being well organized, having patience, being persistent, this definitely helps. So how does it work for you?
I think, as you said, having a system, some sort of system that allows you to balance both things, a full-time job and also my work photographically, is something that I've struggled with since I joined Photoworks, if I'm honest. When I first joined, I had just finished, I was actually in the process of completing my master's. I was just finishing up my thesis before submitting. And I was working part-time for Format Festival. So I was working with Luis Clement, who also is the director of Photoworks. So that's a funny connection there. But yeah, I first joined doing my master's and already with a part-time job, and I realized that it was just too much, having everything at once. So I explained to Louise, that I had to focus on this, and that I would, see her later on, because I feel like the photography world is quite small. You always meet or encounter the same people at different events across the country and in France, at least. And yeah, for me, being organized has been extremely important and has been key to be able to schedule essentially my week. But I've had to really relearn and unlearn a lot of things throughout the years. I feel like I'm now prioritizing rest a lot more, and because I do understand how resting and allowing time for ideas to settle and to really process them is key for creativity to really flow.
Perfectly agree.
Yeah.
And it's a subject which is underestimated and often seen as laziness or weakness, and definitely so please give it.
No, I'm glad you agree, because I feel like I got so obsessed with being overproductive for so many years, and I feel like it's only until recently when I've been unlearning and relearning certain things about myself. And I've also been in the process of merging all my different hats. So like my Photoworks hat, my artist hat, my Mexican hat, my immigrant hat. So I feel like I would separate myself across different parts of myself, but really it's all me. And I feel like sometimes I was limiting myself by not allowing certain parts of myself to come through in certain moments. So for example, with work at Photoworks, I really don't talk about my artist work. It's something that no one really does in the team. There are several artists in the team, and it's an amazing team. They're really inspiring, and I'm really happy to be able to work with them. It's a brilliant team, really. But no one really, we seem to not have the time, or we don't seem to make the time to work, to talk about our work. But it's so important. I feel like it would allow us to connect in a different way. And we're mostly working remotely across the country. So it's only a few times a year when we're really connecting in person and talking about different things. So I appreciate those moments when they do come. But in general, I used to keep like my artist hats separate from my work hats. I'm now trying to merge them. In fact, merge them all.
I mean, I can add here some. So I, couldn't agree more. And with the work that I've been doing, with the filmmaking, when first started, so I was learning from scratch. So I just had to give 100% of my attention. But then, at the point where I have reached, the level of proficiency that was, allowing me to just do it, then I started feeling that it's time to actually experiment with something. So this has been really important. The first experiment at the beginning of this year was launching the podcast, and then through this experiment, I discovered that again, it's expansion of what I've been doing with the documentary filming, and all the interviews that we've been conducting, but. I still felt that I have to actually give myself permission to do something purely individual, that I have to kind of disconnect what I'm doing from any kind of idea of being practical, being of service to others, of helping others, and focus on exploring how I can express myself in different mediums. And, and new experiments followed, writing, now giving a shot to music. So I think this is actually, a significant subject, and many who kind of juggle these multiple identities, just seeing that it's all you. Right, and none of these aspects should be neglected, and your job is to balance them and understand actually how much each of them, how much space in your life each of them needs to, I guess, to allow you to be happy, right, and fulfilled.
And to really, because they're all connected, and all of these worlds that we feel that we inhabit. Perhaps sometimes they feel separate. At least to me, they used to feel quite separate. But I feel like I was really limiting myself by not talking about my work with this group of people or with these other people. Because something that has really been a major thing that Photoworks has provided me has been the networking. I feel like I've met an amazing group of artists and professionals in the photography industry that I wouldn't have access to otherwise. So I think that's the main thing that I've gathered from Photoworks. And there have been so many connections that have stayed with me, and that we, like us together, we I feel like we talk about more things than just work. Mm-hmm. And it feels like a friendship, and it feels exactly like this with many other people that I get to connect to through work.
And perhaps also like the non-competitive side of being part of the artist community, and actually, seeing how things are made in the kitchen, so to say, right? It can help, overcome some obstacles, because it may seem like doing these things, anything art creativity related, is super complicated. But once you see how others handle that, it becomes demystified.
Definitely, especially through making the artist films that we have been creating. Those have been really inspiring personally, to really see how artists work and get a little moment with them for them to just relax and understand really how their creative process works, and how a creative process works, because everyone is unique. Some people are very methodical and they have to schedule everything. Like, for example, I feel like I do need to plan when I'm going to be photographing, when I'm going to be working on this, when I'm going to be reading. And other people are a bit more intuitive, and they just go out with a camera if that's, their methodology. So I feel like having access to very intimate moments with artists has been a privilege to really.
Oh yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, we've been to different parts of the country making these films, and it's always a bit of an adventure. It's been really fun. And I feel like I've really understood their work a lot more by making these films. And I feel like my job when I'm in the process of interviewing these artists is to really make this, is to make this knowledge come through in the camera, because sometimes, you know, some are a little bit more nervous than others, some have a bit more experience with cameras or interviews than others, and it flows more naturally. For others, it's a bit more difficult. And even though perhaps we know what they want to talk about and how they want to talk about it, sometimes getting that in camera is a bit hard. But I feel like we've gotten really good at it, and especially also at making their work accessible to audiences.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And you know, I also always think that proving that artists are in first place humans, other humans, right? And that it's of course you have to, you know, put in the hours, do the work, but you know, it's accessible to anyone who actually wants to pursue that path. And the more stories of you know, how things have worked out, I think are the best inspiration out there. I mean, at least, you know, for me, as someone who's been self-taught in terms of anything art related, like this is, you know, number one really source of proof that that can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really inspirational. Sometimes even just the conversations that we're having in the journey towards a location. Sometimes that's when we get the best type of information about a project or why they're making it, and yeah, it's a privilege, really. I think that's one of my favorite things that I do at Photoworks.
So we talk a lot about art, a lot about career, a lot about culture, heritage, origins, but there's you know, another of those hats that make part of, you know, who you are, which is running. And ever since I met you, I remember that, you know, daily runs were a thing. So tell me what kind of role it plays in your life, and how does it slot with everything else?
In general, running and working out. I love Pilates as well, and they're so important to me. I feel like they allow me to really be energized for my day. I love working out in the morning. I love running, especially because of. Have you heard of runner's high?
Yeah.
That's a real thing, and you really feel it. I feel so ready for the day after a run, and I feel so proud of myself every time. You know, I don't want to go for my run, and I end up going anyways. I feel like it's a major thing that's allowed me to have this discipline with myself, with my practice. For me, it's very important to focus, like, firstly on my health, and it just provides me so much mental clarity as well. I think it's essential to find some sort of movement, exercise, working out, any sort of thing that allows us to move our bodies and you know, just let loose a little bit as well physically, because we get so used to just being in our desk behind a chair, or I see you have a standing desk, which is brilliant. That's a good alternative to it. But I think exercise is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I also think that beyond that, this is also a great ground for developing the consistency that can be transferred to absolutely anything, right? And I would even go a step further, that specifically long distance running, you know, which is something that I'm trying to get into, but then keep getting injuries and things. That's, you know, really a metaphor of life, you know, in many ways. And that kind of experience outdoors, specifically, you know, is a very radical shift of perspective for me, and obviously feeling how different the body responds to that.
Yeah. I think running outside, it's just, especially I like running without music. I think it provides me this time for myself to really work through sometimes it's my to-do list, sometimes it's I don't know, like how I want to tackle a creative issue or something at work. It's really time for myself. And as you said, consistency is key to everything, really. And yeah, right now I'm a little bit injured. I've got an issue in my calf, my right calf, so I'm not able to run as much or as fast as I would like to. But I'm still at it. I'm working on it with my physio. It's been like a year of this issue, and I will persevere. Yeah, and I think that translates to creativity and your practice and any long-term project that is of real interest and deep care to you is really all about consistency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and making it non-destructive to yourself, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all about the longevity of transposing it, the creative career, right? You don't want to complete just one project and burn yourself out on that.
Yeah,
right?
like finding this balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is key.
Brilliant. And what else is coming? Like in terms of creative ideas, projects. Like, do you have something in preparation, or is the focus right now? Or maybe first, please, is there a time frame that you want to complete your current project?
I would love to complete it in the spring, and I've actually just signed up to do a course with Workshop Grow. This is an artist community that I'm a part of, and it's called Expansion. And I'm really excited for that. It's taking place from January till April, I believe. And it's really an opportunity to move things forward and finish a project and get it out there. So I feel like I'm going to have amazing support to do that. And in the second part of the year, I'm actually going to be taking a sabbatical. And so I'm going to be, testing out Mexico with Jay, with my husband. We're going to be focusing on some different projects over there with my family. And then also, I think it would be a chance to work on some other projects that I have been really looking forward to tackle, trying out different mediums that I've explored within the past, but that I have never really taken seriously as part of my practice. So I think this would be a time to really be able to focus on that. And I do have planned this project of co-curation, which is something that I haven't delved into properly. But this is going to be an amazing opportunity for me to be a part of a Mexican festival. It's called Mirar Distinto. And it's taking place in August next year. So I will be there for that.
Oh, sounds like a well-structured year ahead, right? I would expect nothing less. Brilliant. Super happy to hear. It's a bold decision.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be 6 months in Mexico.
5 months.
5 months.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Excellent choice.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for the conversation. It was brilliant.
Thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
This was Natalia González Acosta on Empirical Animal Podcast Experiment. Links to her website and social media pages are included in the description. Thanks for listening, and I see you in the next episode.